Hi, and welcome to Ward 13. My guest today is Norm.
Hi, everybody.
I would say New Hampshire's greatest psychic.
Oh, thank you.
There we
Thank you.
go.
We worked very hard to be that way.
When's
Well,
when's the last time you were in California? So we can't claim you for the West Coast.
oh, I haven't been in California in 20 years.
Yeah, I used to want to be back there so much, but now everything's burning down.
I don't want to go back there again. I had my good time when I went to college out there.
Yeah.
That's when it was fun. You enjoyed everything. Today, you're almost afraid to go out.
Well, it depends on when you live. I
Yeah.
lived at the end. I was living in Carmel by the Sea, and
Ooh.
5 blocks from the beach on a shack, which sold for $800,000 20 some odd years ago. I can imagine what it is now.
Oh, I'm sure it'd be
Just
well over
one-
$1 million.
Just a shack
Yeah.
with really one room, and then they put like a kind of wall, so you had this tiny little
Yeah.
bedroom,
Yeah.
which I used to sleep on the floor because it seemed very bohemian.
Yeah.
But eventually, you know how women are.
Oh, yeah.
I had to get a bed. I also
That's-
had to get a bigger place to put
Yeah.
the bed in.
But I would want to repeat, as a job. But today, I am so afraid for the children that's growing up today
Why is that?
because of all the bureaucracy and all the misinformation and all the history being destroyed. What's wrong with the old fashioned like you and I learned, reading and writing and arithmetic?
Well, one thing, you get all these memes on the internet, and I'm a lefty,
Yeah.
and it says, oh, well, about critical race theory,
Right.
which is, they have the meme. So I can't believe, I just saw one today, that teachers won't be allowed to teach the truth. Now, whenever I hear the word truth, at West High School in Manchester, New Hampshire, which is behind us, although
Yeah.
taken from the west side,
Yeah.
up on the parking lot, I
Yeah.
believe. I
Good.
had a campaign photo taken up
Yeah.
there by Heidi Hamer, of all people. And they taught us Bacon's essay on truth. And, when it starts out, what is truth? A jesting pilot asked, but would not stay for the answer.
Yeah.
I mean, when people start talking about truth, the essence of the essay, and Bacon was from the 16th century, one of the great essayists and intellectuals of his time, is that people can't handle the truth.
No,
They can
no.
only handle half truths, like in candlelight. They can't handle the sunlight.
Yeah.
But the thing is, what is truth? When you hear truth, that's when God spare us the true believers. Because true believers, when they have the truth, because when I was at West High School, and in junior high, and I started school in 1964. So we had the entire
Oh,
starting.
that's the year I graduated.
I mean, I'm talking in
High school.
kindergarten.
Oh, my God.
I graduated from high school in '77. We went through the entire civil rights. Selma. I remember watching Selma, Alabama, on TV and everything. And I remember one of my earliest thoughts was I was with my two sisters who were older by 7 and 6 years, and I was saying, I'm glad I'm not black. Just as a little kid, because you're watching what's going on in Selma. But they taught us everything. They taught us about slavery, all the stuff that these memes saying they don't teach us. Yeah, they taught us.
I had the pleasure of walking in that Selma, Alabama, to Mobile, Alabama.
What were you doing down there? Were you down there for the
For
march?
the march? Yes.
Oh, yeah, with John Lewis and everybody.
Yeah. And you know what? I have said this many times. Martin Luther King would roll over in his cemetery grave if he saw what was going on today.
Well, I don't know that, but
That's what I believe. Yeah.
And you're right to right to have
And
your
that's like,
beliefs.
and they're not trying to take it away from us. That's what I don't like. And you know what? I don't blame the Democrats. I don't blame the Republicans. I blame the people themselves.
Well, the people are the people.
Yeah.
But when you talk about critical race theory, it's not talking about slavery, which of
No.
course they do.
Yeah.
And I was at Boston University. I studied the Soviet Union, Marxism, fascism, with Howard Zinn, the most famous left-wing historian, which, I've been on my show saying, oh yeah, they should use his book as a textbook. Because there's something different about talking about, like what happened. 'Cause they say, oh, we never were told about Tulsa. Well, I knew about Tulsa. And Zinn, had his perspective on it, and talking about America because there was always riots. There was just the anniversary of a riot with white miners getting machine gunned by Rockefeller, But, which we weren't necessarily taught all that much.
No.
But then again, up here in the Northeast, we were taught enough about it. But when you talk about critical race theory, it's not truth. That's actually a political ideology, which I know well. It comes out of Gramsciism. Gramsci was a famous Italian communist, and he had a school of thought, which is Marxist. And then you can talk about, this is all what I studied. Then after the collapse of the Soviet Union thing, well, there it all goes. Everybody's like put out of jobs, which people that I know that were Target, the Soviet Union stuff, were put out of jobs temporarily. But the funny thing was, it died as a political philosophy in international politics and that, but it lived on in the academy, in colleges. And when I'm studying all this stuff, and I'm also studying other things, because the Soviet Union being the great bugbear of our time, and Russia continues to be. The one thing I couldn't stand is reading books about aesthetics, about literature and culture and everything. See, Marxism has nothing, because it's an ideology. It is propaganda. It claims it's a science of history, yet it's against actual history. It claims that it's a science of history, yet it's against what's called scientism. And the Gramscians, who are very prominent in the original people that created critical race theory, it denounces scientism, which is science, which is empirical-based reality. And I can't believe the attack on empiricism that exists in this country right now. And it's startling, and I'm an old Bolshevik, I'm just using the term Bolshevik.
Yeah.
I was never in a communist party or anything.
No.
I voted for Jimmy Carter.
Me too.
Some
I really had a lot of respect for Jimmy Carter.
Oh yeah, you have to, but it's just you're watching a battle of propaganda that is kind of startling.
See, the one thing I'd like to see here in Manchester, and I want your views because you're very honest and you're up front.
Got me nowhere in this town.
That's true, but I would rather see a manager than a mayor in this city.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. We should have a city manager type of system. Yeah. It's not to put down the people that were mayors or been mayors, but it's just the way this city is. They say for any city, 300,000 people or less, a city manager system like they have in Portsmouth is much better because it cuts the politics out. One thing you learn, I studied political science, which I wished I had, because once again, political science wasn't really a science. But the smaller the city, the more corrupt it is. And it was hard to believe that in New York, where I lived, or my father lived outside Chicago, would be less corrupt than a small city. But when you see the practical experience, or Boston, or San Francisco, or Los Angeles, all places I've lived.
Give me San Francisco anytime.
Stuff that happens. But I learned a lot from New York.
Yeah.
One thing you learn about the welfare state is, because you had the Village Voice, those old lefties, like that came out of Norman Mailer and all the old lefties from the World War II generation. They would have the articles about for the welfare motels, they have to buy mattresses. So they buy a bunch of mattresses for $10 from the Dominican Republic and sell them for $100 to the city, and just make all these profits. Yeah. And you start realizing, which is true, the Lyndon Johnson's War on Poverty was just basically a spoils system. They say when Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of '64, and nobody can ever prove, he says, well, now I've lost the South for the Democrats, which did happen. But actually, he did get a lot of kickback from Daley and the big city bosses, who, they want to keep the blacks and the other people down, and control them. And so to get elected in '68, he decided he was going to build his own machine separate. Yeah. And when you're pouring all this money out, because I remember Vernon Jordan talking on a PBS special, there was just too many programs and too much money at once. But see, the idea was for him to empower these people that would work for him in '68. But he didn't anticipate that the Vietnam War would destroy him.
Right.
But,
and that's the whole thing. We need to bring a strong understanding when a politician. If you don't like the way they're in, then vote them out.
Well, I like a parliamentary system more
Yeah.
than a presidency is like a mayor system.
Yeah.
Mayors, you had Ted Getz was a strong man and a bully.
Very
He bullied, and let's not talk about him. But
But I have to agree with you on that part.
but when you have all this stuff going on in a city, a city manager is a better way. It's more rational.
Yeah.
But the United States and
Because
most
then
democracies
there
are
is-
rational.
Because my feelings are when you have a city manager, they're not accountable to the aldermen.
Well, they are ultimately.
Yeah. But I mean, they're still accountable to us as well.
Right. Because they usually get like a 5-year contract.
Right.
And I guess they can get removed by like a super majority of the aldermen.
Yeah.
But they're not going to play the same type of politics. A mayor has to play politics.
Yeah.
Like Joyce, if you're Joyce Craig or Ted Gatzis, two different styles, you've got to have 8 aldermen. And they have a price. You know, folks, we only pay them $5,000 a year. But believe me,
They get that much?
they should get more. I always said, they should take, some people get almost $25,000 from taking insurance benefits.
Yeah.
They should take like 3 years, the average of all the money spent on them, then set a salary. Because when you're only getting $5,000, what's like the late Bill Cashin told me, they raised the I shouldn't say what he told me because it was incompetence. But one of the reasons they raised the pay of the police was, the idea of it so you don't engage in grafting. Because they used to be paid like nothing.
One of the things that I would like to see in Manchester is it's time for a new chief of police. And I don't want to see them hiring from within. I would like to see somebody from who's had experience out of New York.
I mean, the best person there is.
Right. Who's been there, who's been with the and you know what's scary is? A gentleman got beat up by 5 young people at 7-Eleven on the west side. And we've never had that over there.
What happened?
Over at 7-Eleven.
Wasn't the cops that beat him up?
No. Probably the cops, was it?
We had that on the east side, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
And then the sad part is now I am looking at at Sweetie Park. You know where I live.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful park. Love it.
Because you and Bill Berry helped make it.
I gotta give Bill Berry a lot of credit for that. Not at party, but I give him. And I look out there now, and we're seeing the homeless people there. It breaks my heart.
Well, yeah, there's no state policy on the homeless.
No.
There's nothing, and everybody, we both have our opinions about Joe Kelly Levasseur.
Oh, yeah.
But one thing he said that was true was that the state and the towns and cities in this state, send the homeless and their troubled people here. And so do neighboring states.
Right. Well, I like what Victoria Sullivan said. If we can prove what state or what town they're from, send them a bill.
Well, that used to be the poor law. But as I understand it, when the Tea Party was in control up in Concord, 2010, 2011, they got rid of that law. Because in the old days, you got sent back to your town. Up till 100 years ago.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, my great-grandfather, the woman who, his aunt or his cousin or sister from Scotland came here and then sponsored him to come here. You can't really say it's not like it is now.
No.
Because there's no immigration laws.
No.
You get on a boat and you go to Canada. Because he was from Edinburgh, that's where they had the mills. And the English wouldn't let you go to America. So you just go to Canada and then you just walk across the border. Right. But she was already here. So, she was here and would talk to him. But she's buried at the county farm in Hillsborough. Well, I guess they didn't have the money to bury her. My sister...
That's a pauper's
yeah, there's a pauper's grave. But they used to have the poorhouse up there, where it was the woman's prison.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, up in Goffstown.
Garage. I know. I was going to get my nurse's training there.
Right. Oh, yeah, they had the Moore General Hospital, which is gone.
I will say, of all the nursing homes that I have worked at, and I've worked at a lot of them, and the Hillsborough County Nursing Home was the best nursing home I ever worked at. They cared for their patient. I'm talking 25 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
30, and I'm sure they still do.
Were you there when the head nurse, what was her name, Alexander?
Yeah, she was leaving when I was
Pat Alexander, right.
I went through an agency.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I liked about working with the agency. I got a chance to see all the different nursing homes. I'm not going to read them on the air because I don't want to get sued.
Right, and it is 25 years ago.
Yeah, and 30 years ago. But I have to say this, they gave excellent care. I remember, John, I went in on Thanksgiving Day, which is very unusual for agency to work. And the way they had those clients dressed up was just amazing. Shirt and tie, nice dresses, like you would think they were going to a formal dance. This is the way it was.
That was like the head nurse, like Pat Alexander, everything. They knew, they thought of them as people.
Yeah.
So I remember one thing she said that was shocking. It was like, they're elderly men and elderly women up there, so they have to facilitate them, having relations.
Yeah.
Because even when you're an old fart, that's a normal part of life.
Oh, absolutely. We had one in Franklin. We had this old lady. She was a busy lady, if you know what I mean. We had to close the door because she was quite entertaining. The only thing I didn't like is that the people had to clean her up after, But she was quite entertaining with the men, shall we say,
Yep. But times change.
Yeah.
I'm sure there. I've been because of my various problems, like at the Elliott Hospital and the VA. There's still excellent. There's excellent people.
That hospital, the Elliott Day Surgery, and the staff when I had my surgery done, I can never ever complain about them. Okay, and then when I went to Hitchcock Clinic, okay, Dr. Patnall, she removed my cancer, and I'll tell you, I would truly believe that there is a God.
Oh,
I call it the universal spirit. But I'm going to
too.
tell you right now, I saw the white light.
You did? What?
Yeah, when they were doing the surgery on another area, and I didn't want to come back. I wanted to stay. They go, no. But I cannot, and I will always brag about the care that I got at that hospital.
Yeah.
And with that, and Scott, who was my partner, my family, and the support, John, that I got was incredible. So, folks, if you had time to feel sorry for yourself, take the time to rejoice. You and I have had a lot of medical issues.
Oh yeah.
But
unfortunately.
But we don't let it get us down.
Sometimes it can get you down,
Yeah.
but you have to come. If you don't fight back,
No.
you'll get lost.
Yeah. I go walking now every day more than I ever have. And we went out, we did a lot. I just, everything in this life happens for a reason.
Well,
Like today, for instance, me being on your show wasn't an accident. It was a coincidence. It was meant to happen. To hear you and your intellectual way of doing things. And I'm not being rude. I pay you in it.
I know. Matt's always, I explain too much. Because people, what is it? You ask for the time, and I'll tell you how a watch is built before I tell you the time.
Never time him if he could have explained something. If you say you're going to give him a 5-minute time, plan on him having 10 minutes. Oh, if I can work things out, we'll say like Sullivan and Craig go head to head in the battle for the mayor.
Well, that's after the primary.
Right, after the primary. I mean, if that happens, or whomever happens, I am going to try to have a debate with them too. I would like to have you be the moderator.
Neither one of them would. Well, I know Joyce well, but she's seen me in all sorts of states, like when I had PTSD.
Like me, but that's okay. But I'm just saying, if I could get them too.
No, Victoria's fine, everything. But I'm just saying, I would say, I have warm feelings about Joyce, but she's just seen me. She was there when I went in and told Dad. I'd come out of my therapist's office as she opened the door to PTSD, found out I had PTSD, and I walk into City Hall and start calling Ted Gatz a liar because he was lying. He said in 2015 that Joyce Craig wanted to put a city tax. Even New York City can't put city taxes. Just cities and towns aren't allowed to do taxes. Right. But he's a politician. So she saw me, yelling at him, and it's actually, that was quite a time.
Politicians know how to be honest.
Yes, but you have to lie in order to get elected.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You have to lie to people because, as we're talking about people caregivers in the 70s, the caregivers now. People don't change, I don't think. And they still have compassion and everything. But the system can change. And but a politician, but it's just like prostitution. And there's a curb crawler, and then there's the $10,000 a night hooker.
Oh, yeah.
So there's lying and there's lying. There's fibbing.
What I don't like is all of a sudden these politicians, I'm not naming any specific one, all of a sudden out of the blue, we're going to curb the drug problem. We're going to curb the homeless problem. Well, once they get elected, bye-bye.
Well, the homeless problem is so difficult. I did research. I go back to 1999 where Joe Lavasser and Keith Hirschman was on the board, and they're talking about opening up the state armory for the homeless, which then 20 years later they're against. So this issue has been going on forever. And remember, Ted Gatzis is the one who, I've mentioned before, I've never seen the evidence. They say, so many sources say that him and his brother have a building where they have a methadone clinic. And, people want to say that like negative, but like my friend Jeff Cassell, who actually, taught,
I used to like Jeff. I haven't heard from him in years.
Yeah, he's kind of holed up in his house reading and writing and stuff.
Didn't the Mayor Gassett, former Mayor Gassett, he cut the benches in half so that the homeless couldn't sleep on the benches?
Oh, I didn't know that. I never heard that.
Glenn Argiolet made a big thing about
Was that Gatzis or Jeff Cassell?
No, Gassett. No. I wouldn't put
Jeff can rhetorically get worked up, but I just brought him up because you talk about he treated methadone and everything, and he's online, talking about the homeless and everything. But Gatzis, you had the safe station was under Gatzis because that was that guy's. I used to know his name. Came up with the idea. Then Ted took it and ran with it for the 2015 election. And he was he was saying that we have people coming in from California, which wasn't true. There was nobody from California that ever came here. But he's releasing to the news and announcing, people from California. A mother put her kid on the plane to send her to Manchester because we're the place that is going to handle drug addiction. And homelessness was part of that too. And well, you build it. It's like the old movie with Kevin Costner. You build it and they will come. You build the baseball field and they'll come, and they do come. That started before Joyce Craig, and then Sununu got rid of the hub and spoke system, which was created and never really worked. That was supposed to take the pressure off of Manchester. But Nashua was a Democrat, doesn't care with Joyce. I guess they might in a way, but he's going to send his people up here. Why not? Because it's here. So you have the idea of compassion and treating people with compassion. But if the whole state's not involved, it's a real problem.
I talk to a lot. I walk hands across the Merrimack.
Okay.
I love it. Have you ever walked it?
Oh yeah, many times.
Isn't it awesome? And it's clean.
You got that big bowl on the east.
I don't like that.
Oh, with his big...
Yeah. Well, not so like that. It's honoring the guy.
Slaughterhouse that was there.
Slaughterhouse, that's what I know. But it's clean.
At first I saw it and said, geez, I was trying to figure, what's a bull doing here? Oh, that's right. The infamous slaughterhouse was here. So I was thinking, this is something you see in Spain or Mexico next to the stadium.
And I talked to a lot of the homeless people. I love talking to people when I do my walk. And a lot of them are happy being homeless.
Well, a lot of people don't want to be constrained inside a shelter because a shelter is no wonderful place to live.
And I'm also understanding, and it breaks my heart, is that the shelter, if you don't stay there, you don't get a free meal there. They put it in the bag.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
When I used to go volunteer there, it seemed anybody could go.
When 25 years, I did sober, almost 26 years now, and I was grateful to go there. They had excellent meals.
Oh yeah. Well, that was about 2015, 16.
Yeah. But the thing that I don't like is that, and I think they're not toys; they're human beings. That you don't need to. I know a lot of people who have lived in there, and one of whom came and moved in with me. It's not a concentration camp. It is there to help the people who are homeless. You don't have a right to abuse them by making them lay on a floor on a mat and earn their right to have a bed.
Well, in the old days, when I went to sophomore year in college, I lived in what's called a single room only. It's like you have these tiny little rooms, and all that type of accommodations been wiped out a long time ago.
Yeah.
Charles Bukowski, the famous L.A. poet, the poet laureate of Skid Row, says the most important thing is to have four walls around you, even if they're even if they're not very nice. Yeah. But look at the real estate prices.
I had a homeless person that stayed with me for a while. He said he used to love to go down by the railroad track and hear the train, trucking it along. Or when they got close enough, he'd run to see if he could outbeat the train. And I'm going, whoa, because my nephew was killed by a train down in Alabama.
Oh, there's Pat Alexander. Some kid died near her house. She was near a train. Yeah. That brings back memories. It's not a very pleasant way to go. No. But it's just, you have to have a whole state. This is like New York City or Chicago. The biggest city will attract people. But, there is a big homeless problem still, even in Nashville, and drug dealing and all that. If the state is not coordinating stuff, if, you go up there, you go up to Concord, and everybody hates Manchester. There's no other way. I'm not talking about the people inside Manchester.
No, I mean.
But everybody up there. Manchester's like, before 9/11, everybody hated, in the entire United States hated New York City, unless you were from New York. Yeah. It's like, oh my God, the things everybody said about New York. Because you'd go visit, and then, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, it was a real hole.
I'm going to let you continue. I'm going to go wait for my guest, okay? You're sticking around, right?
Sure. Bring him on. Is he here?
I don't know. I'll go check. If he is, I'll bring him in. Okay?
Yeah, bring him on.
Yeah. And then you can stay for 2 hours.
Oh, jeez. I'll have to go put some money in the heater. I'm going to have to... Let's take a break for a few minutes. You can either bring up a thing or...
Yeah.
I'm going to... Hi, we're back here at Ward 13. Norm's got a guest, a gentleman that's running for Alderman at Large. And when he comes, he's going to be on Norm's show at 4. I asked Normn to bring him on, and we'll talk to him. Meanwhile, I've decided to entertain you folks. I have a column on Medium, and read a couple of columns. I'd like to read them all, but I forgot my password, and they only let me read 4. Back on August 6th, I published this deathless article that will live on forever. It's called Victoria Sullivan and Tammy Simmons Put Down of French Canadians Linked to the Free State Project Allies. I realize that I misspelled Tammy Simmons' name. Tammy Simmons was formerly the alderman. No, not the alderman. That was Phil Grazzo. She was a state rep from Ward 10. She represented both me and Norm. Libertarian group allegedly has targeted Ward 11 for political takeover. And this is an opinion. Always tag, folks, the articles of opinion with an opinion. We all aren't Rachel Maddow. When she gets sued for libel, she can afford a battery of lawyers that can contend that everybody knows what she's saying is just entertaining opinion. So here we go. To understand the bizarre discussion of French-Canadian Catholics by Victoria Sullivan and Tammy Simmons on the latter's Manch Talk public access TV broadcast, one needs to know that the Free State Project allegedly has targeted Ward 11 on the west side with a political takeover. Apparently, they see the French-Canadian community that is the dominant demographic group in Ward 11 as a problem. Ward 11 was the heart, and is the heart, of Manchester's Le Petit Canada. It means Little Canada, folks. That's where I was born. I was born actually in Goffstown and raised in Ward 10, which I'm part French-Canadian, as you might surmise by my name, John Claude. And I grew up in a French-speaking neighborhood. A former state rep from the West Side, who was Greek-American, told me several years ago that Franco-Americans, also known as French-Canadians, were extremely tribal and favored voting for their own, more so than any of the other ethnic groups in the Queen City. And nowhere was the French-Canadian population and culture stronger than in Ward 11. John, the French in Ward 11 might vote for an Irishman, or maybe somebody who's been around forever with a German name, he told me. But for a Greek, never. This is a maxim of Manchester politics. So what does one do when one has targeted a ward for takeover and one lacks a French name? If you notice, over in Ward 11, you'd better have a French name to prosper. When I read that U.S. Senator Rand Paul had endorsed Victoria Sullivan, a political lightweight for the not exactly within the ken of Outlander Senator's office of Mayor of Manchester, New Hampshire, whoa, there's a real mouthful, huh? Better reading than speaking. Yeah, why is a U.S. Senator endorsing somebody for the mayor of Manchester? Either they have presidential ambition or there's something else. Why would Rand Paul become involved, as he apparently doesn't have any intention of running in the New Hampshire presidential primary in 2024? Of course, he has run for president before. But former Congressman Ron Paul is featured on the Free State Project website saying, "I am a friend of the Free State Project. Check it out. And if you like it, join and continue the effort." Then I remembered that State Rep Tammy Simmons, former State Rep Tammy Simmons, Hillsborough District 17, which is Ward 10, supported the Libertarian Ron Paul during the 2012 New Hampshire primary. He came in second behind Mitt Romney, and which KO'd John Huntsman, by the way. Michael Biondo, if that's how you pronounce his name, maybe I'll be in for anti-Italian sentiments. Michael Biondo, a consultant to the Victoria Sullivan for Mayor campaign, who often serves as a spokesperson for her, served as a senior advisor to Ron Paul's 2012 presidential campaign. He actually was the one who attacked Rich Girard for criticizing Sullivan for what he sees as bigoted remarks. I'm actually surprised how little press that Victoria Sullivan and Tammy Simmons talking about French Canadians and Rich Girard attacking them got. I don't think the union leader covered the story at all. The Democrats certainly didn't say a damn thing. But, the West Side is an afterthought in this city. In my opinion, it should be its own separate city. even if that would give the Free Staters and others a chance to, have power. Because I'd say it's better under Joyce Craig, though. We just got a new bus stop over near Penardville. So, Rich Gerard. Oh, somebody's calling. Well, that's too bad for the caller. You'll have to tell him to call back at another time because I am reading this. So, this is what Biondo said in a quote. Manchester Inklink carried the story, but it didn't have any legs. Just because Rich Gerard is desperate and losing, it doesn't give him the right to lie. And he went on to say, Victoria has respect for all of Manchester's residents. Respect is a word that would serve Rich well to learn. Later on, it came out that Victoria Sullivan actually has like a grandfather who's French-Canadian. And so Gerard attacking the remarks, which I'm going to read to you. Let me read you the remarks. Turns out to be... It wasn't a matter of Victoria Sullivan or Tammy Simmons being anti-French. It was their being pro-Free State. Here's what happened. Here's the transcript. Because they'd never let me use their show on my show. We're going to have to edit this one to tighten it up, huh? This is Tammy Simmons. There were people who are not French-Canadian Catholics that settled here prior to 1990. 1990. Why would she talk about that? That's probably around the time she might have arrived here. I think she arrived in the late 80s. I don't know. If my memory serves me correctly. But the Free State movement, I guess, by the time I got here in 2013, it had legs. And it must have started around the turn of the millennium. So, they are talking about... It would help if I was in the right place. Okay, here's a transcript. Tammy Simmons. A large portion of Manchester are French-Canadian Catholic, and that's okay. They were all from the mills and everything. This is Victoria Sullivan, and they do a wonderful job with the West Side. Simmons, there's nothing wrong, but I'm just saying you can't live in 2021 and think that you have to do everything in the city based on what we needed in the 80s or the 90s. Sullivan, right. Simmons, right. Sullivan, yes. Simmons, we have Sullivan, a very different demographic. Boy, I could use Gonzo here, huh? To do one of the roles. Sullivan. No, and if you haven't gone on the West Side and talked to some of the folks who are over there that are really invested in the community, they take so much pride in what's happening over there, and they love the rest of the city. So we've dismissed the French Canadians as being a relic of the past. And Sullivan is saying, if you haven't gone on the West Side and talked to some of the folks who are over there that are really invested in the community, they take so much pride in what's happening over there, and they love the rest of the city. I mean, who are they? Simmons then brings up a new organization called We Heart West that is planning the first West Manchester Day at Rock Rimmon Park in Ward 11. The group seems to be dedicated to neighborhood cleanups, which is a passion of Victoria Sullivan. This is what, you just have to do a little research, folks, and figure it out. Because Louis Calitz, who blogs on the We Heart West website, is a member of the Free State Project. He's also the husband of Carla Garricky, a frequent guest on Tammy Simmons's show, Manch Talk. And she is a Free State Project Board of Directors member who advocates for the secession of New Hampshire from the United States. Yes, she is a separatist. Born in South Africa, I'm sure she's a naturalized citizen here in the United States. She believes that New Hampshire should be its own country. Something that is so absurd that even the Democrats she ran against during her frequent campaigns, they just ignore it. I'm sorry. Jeez. Okay, here we're back to Victoria Sullivan. And that organization, meaning We Heart West, that organization is largely made up of new residents to the city. What Ms. Sullivan fails to say is that this organization likely is largely made up of people from the Free State Project that have moved here to New Hampshire and to Manchester and to Ward 11 for their own political reasons, because their idea is to politically, if not take over New Hampshire, and most of them, I don't think, believe in this fantasy of secession, but to wield political power. Now we go back to Tammy Simmons. There are people, I already read this. There are people who are not French Canadian Catholics that settled here prior to 1990. They are young people who want to make the community there more vibrant, and they want to clean up their neighborhoods, and they're organizing. And it's very similar to what happened in the North End with Stark Park, which I have no idea what she's talking about. But what she's really talking about, Tammy Simmons, is that these more than are Free Staters. Whether they completely are Free Staters, I don't know. But they seem to dominate this organization, We Heart West. They call themselves Westies, which, I lived on the West Side the first 18 years of my life. Then I came back. I've been here for 10 years, almost 11 years now. I've never heard a West Sider call themselves a Westie. I mean, come on. And here's Victoria Sullivan. And I will tell you that the elderly people that live on that side, meaning the West Side, the other side of the river, love that they're passing the torch to another generation of people. So here we have a group, We Heart West, that the spokesperson is Carla Garrick's husband, that seems to be Free State Project related. Yet the elderly people on the West Side, on that side, love that they're passing the torch to another generation of people. Do you think that Victoria Sullivan's exaggerating that? I wish Normn was here and I'd ask him. Here's my aside. I'm a native of the West Side. I have the suspicion Victoria Sullivan's assertion that the elderly people of the West Side love that they're passing the torch is something made up by a paid political consultant. Just an opinion, folks. Her idea that the Franco-Americans of the West Side want to be taken over by the Free State Project's extreme libertarians borders on delusional, in my opinion. At best, it is extremely cynical, as it's not true. Victoria's lived in Manchester about 12 years. She lived in Goffstown earlier, as she explained on the show, thinking her logic being that Goffstown and Manchester are the same, which decidedly they're not, just like I don't think she understands the West Side at all. Simmons went on to say, unbelievably, that the French Canadians of the West Side, who are fabled for their hard work and their clean, tidy, well-maintained yards, essentially don't give a damn about the clean streets. I mean, here's another one that doesn't really understand the West Side, in my opinion. Simmons, if you're 70 years old, you are the French Canadian Catholic that's lived here all your life, and you don't stick to cleaning the street. First of all, street cleaning essentially is done by the city. And since I was a boy, I've always been fascinated by that street cleaning vehicle. It used to be much more magnetic when I was a kid in the 60s, 70s, because the guy was out. It was always a guy. It was outside. I don't even think they had a cab on him. Then you get older and you wonder, what the hell are they sweeping the city for? It doesn't seem to do much good. In the old days, you had to sweep the streets because there was horse manure on them. But I guess that is a municipal job. and probably a damn good one. Oh, we'll take this phone call. Hi, welcome to Ward 13.
Hi,
Hi, who's this?
Sue.
Sue, my friend Sue?
Could be.
Oh, what's up, Sue?
Just
Are you a French?
trying to talk about fresh Canadians from the West Side.
Don't you think that they're a bunch of old elderly farts that don't want to clean the streets anymore?
Hey, just so you know, we're the only ones who clean the streets.
I know. The French Canadians are just famous for those yards, you know. It's. I was just rereading a French Jack Kerouac novel where he talks about how they're shocked when they go to New York and see how dirty everybody is because, you know, they're French Canadian.
Right. You might want to tell the other two people, Simmons and Victoria, that the French Canadians are very populous people, and we're all around the city, not just in Ward 10 and 11.
I know. It's. I don't think that they were really insulting French Canadians. I just think they don't understand them. Because, you know, you're talking about a group that was so powerful at one time politically. In the Democratic Party, that in 1972, Nixon's plumbers. Remember the Canuck letter, where they fabricated a letter that Muskie of Maine, Senator Muskie, who was the favorite at that point in the 1972 presidential primaries, that he insulted French Canadians. I mean,
yeah, you don't want to do that. There's too many of us.
Did you actually see the show?
Huh?
Did you actually see Manch Talk with Tammy and Victoria?
I did not. I can't say that I did, but I talking about the West Side, if you haven't lived on the West Side, you shouldn't be talking about it.
Well, you know, it's funny about Simmons is that she's lived here, was it 30 years? She used to live, my father, as a kid, was on Granite Street, you know?
Yeah, I'm well aware of the West Side, and tell them that a lot of French Canadian Catholics marry Irish Catholic Americans.
Yeah, you brought them up by their bootstraps, didn't you?
That's right. That's how we had to wrangle them in.
You know what's the funniest thing? Is my mother was part French Canadian. I think she's like a quarter. She would never admit it. When I told she and Grace Metalius and George Metalius, my father, when Grace Metalius and George lived over in 3rd Street in the Squag, that they used to drink homemade ouzo over there. And when I told my father, I read because, you know, they had stories about her, but they as a friend, you know, who happened to write Peyton Place. Then she ran off, and she came back to New Hampshire, and then she died. So their stories are stuff that doesn't even get into the books. But when I told my father that Grace was French Canadian, he said, "No, she's not. She's Greek." And I always tried to understand why people would pretend that they weren't French Canadian, like my mother. But it's because they were treated so badly, you know.
Yeah,
at the time,
but you know what?
World War II.
We win in the end, and we have long memories.
Right, because when I was a kid, the French Canadians and the Irish, they had their own Catholic churches, they had their own Catholic schools, and they all insulted each other. And then you wondered, but they were all married. An Irish Catholic man or woman was always married to like a French Canadian.
There you go. They know how to upgrade.
Yeah, Mike Craig is half French Canadian. His mother, who's a lovely person, is French Canadian, I believe. You know, from what I understand. But it's But, you know, as Kerouac goes on, Kerouac always claimed, well, I'm actually, my people are from Cornwall and Brittany, you know, and I'm a Celt, because the people that came to settle Quebec were from the Celtic region of France. So basically, it's so many, you're actually alike, genetically, you know, the same, and there's just vague differences between the Celtic of Ireland and like Brittany and that. But it's identity politics, right? We all are the other.
Well, you know, Hopwood, I couldn't let the French Canadian Catholic thing go by without calling in.
I can't believe that the French. Well, every French Canadian I ever knew was a Catholic. Right? Everybody I knew except for the Heidi Hamer and Keith Hirschman and Jeff Lang when I was a kid. and myself, we were the
Yeah.
4 Protestants in the entire school system on the west side.
There you go. There you
But,
go.
everybody's,
All right, Hopwood,
yeah.
I'll let you go so you can end your show. Have a good day.
Yeah. Well, thanks for calling in, but I can't believe
Yeah,
she
bye-bye.
said that. Yeah, bye. Yeah, folks, it was a stupid thing to say, and but I don't think that either one were against French Canadians because it's just basically it's an ethnic group that's kind of disadvantageous right now because the Free State Project's targeting Ward 11. Well, do you want to come on, bring your guest on because we can go right
He's
through
on
it.
his way in.
Oh, okay. Well, you'll be sitting here, right?
You're
sitting
sit
over the
over
left.
there, and
Yeah.
I'll sit there.
Well, folks, we had enough of the French Canadian stuff. You can go on medium.com. You can look up the articles. But I think that Rich Girard was off when he said that Victoria Sullivan, who is part French Canadian, and even dear old Tammy Simmons were insulting French Canadians. It's just,
Why do people have to assault each other?
well, they didn't really insult them. They're basically promoting the Free State Project, and all the French Canadians over there are denying them the spoils. Because look, you've got Norm Gamache, and it's always like Russ Soulette, who was humiliated, but he comes back and he runs because if you got the French name, you're going to be in the final.
He actually won. He got quite a bit of votes.
Oh yeah, he outdid Norm in the primary last time, but
then he moved out. He's not in Manchester anymore. Right?
oh, he's not.
No, I think he moved to another area.
Yeah.
Somebody, I'll have to find out for sure.
He claims that Joe Lavassa was behind it all, but
I believe it.
I don't
Of
necessarily.
course, you know and I know. John and I don't always agree, on anything. Yeah, isn't that what's great about this country?
Well, you know what? Why don't you tell who's going to be on as your guest?
I am excited, and John, you're going to be on with me.
Sure. Well, I
I'm
gotta
truly
go.
excited. We have a gentleman. He's coming on. He belongs to a group called From Felon to Freeman.
Oh wow!
From handcuffs to cufflinks.
I've never even been arrested.
Well, I wish.
Well, in the old days, they used
Yeah.
to get you for everything.
Oh yeah, walking down the street, I spent 4 different nights in jail for being, shall we say, slightly intoxicated.
Well, as my friend Don Gorton was saying, back in the old days, if you wore a dress on the street, they'd arrest you.
Oh, absolutely.
Masquerading,
Yeah.
they call it.
And
Not that
actually,
you,
and
went around in drag.
and this guy's name is Anthony Harris. That's coming on. He's for Alderman at Large,
Running for Alderman at Large.
right? Okay, and you're right. I remember when. I don't know how it is now, but if you dress in drag, you could get arrested for it. But they couldn't stop you if you had one male item, like a pair of underwear or shoes or whatever, and then because you weren't completely dressed. They had a judge out of Boston who they nailed for dressing in drag.
Holy smoke.
This is in Laconia.
Which is a drag anyway.
Yeah. The best one. I love Laconia. I mean, I love the lakes. I love all of that stuff.
Really
With Pasaki.
I don't know anything really outside of the west side, really.
Yeah. But
And
I
the
love it
beaches.
down here. Okay. And
That's right, you're from the North Country.
Right. I'm from actually Springfield, New Hampshire, but I lived in Laconia for 22 years. Springfield's near New London, New Hampshire.
I've been to Laconia.
Dartmouth, Lebanon.
Is Laconia the one that's... no, Laconia is near Dartmouth.
No. Laconia is near Meredith, Peterborough, north. Okay. Where Winnipesaukee is.
Laconia is up there?
Oh, yeah.
That's the one when you're going. What's the one you go through that's near Hanover? Is that Claremont?
That's Lebanon, and Claremont, Lebanon, Enfield.
They all kind of look alike.
Yeah.
When you've been through them, they're mill towns.
Yeah.
That
couldn't wait to move out of them. But Enfield has.
I'm never running for state office, folks.
No, you won't win that way. But actually, Enfield has the La Salette Shrine. That was beautiful back in my day. Now I went by it now. Now it's all. They took away all the beautiful property. We out due for Christmas. People would go for miles around to go, and now they have all condominiums on there.
Huh.
And called Enfield, New Hampshire, which is a very small town.
I think I know California better than New Hampshire.
Yeah.
But it's impossible to get elected there, too, unless you're a billionaire. But we get to recall the governor. I wanted to be out there to vote against him. You know why? They say, are you really against him? I said, no, but I just want to vote against him.
Yeah.
Because the last one I voted to keep in it, and they booted him out. We got Schwarzenegger. And I'll always regret not voting for Larry Flint for governor.
I kind of liked him.
Well, he was my employer, freelance for Hustler for a bit. So did Jeff Cassell, by the way.
Well, you don't see there again. Okay, you got 1 minute here. You want to close out here to get ready.
Well, this was certainly an interesting show.
Isn't it?
It'd be better if I edited it. Not your part, but my part.
No, your part's fine. Don't edit it.
Well, you know, when you're writing is different. It's like a script. It's for the eye rather than the ear. So I kind of screwed that up a bit. But I'll persevere, and we'll see you next week. I think I have a guest next week. Gonzo will be back. Yes, who you predicted, not only that his wife is pregnant,
Yeah.
you predicted the sex of the kid,
Yeah.
and that they're going to Texas.
Good. I think that would be.
You can't top that, can you,
No.
folks?
I think that would make it an awesome move for him to move to Texas, because I think he needs to break those shackles that are around.
I agree, but we have to wrap it up.
Okay.
Stay tuned
Yeah.
for Norm, and it's not Norm and Friends, it's Norm's Community Corner.
Right.
Okay,
And that's going to be
memory
on
work
now,
today.
with John Hopwood and myself and Anthony Harris.
Take care, folks.
Yeah.